Hi everyone, it's Siobhan here again, the Galloping Housewife. Today I'm moving off the is it okay thing for a day, as I've been asked to address immunity and transmission and infectiousness, and I can't really figure out a natural way to make this work. I mean, is it okay to leave the house? That might work. But anyway, while it's not likely to be happening in any sort of hurry here in the UK, we will be moving towards restrictions being lifted, and people are quite rightly worried. The government comms is pretty shit, to be honest, and everyone is just so confused. I wrote a thread on Twitter talking about transmission, and the feedback was that it was really useful and that I should make it public. So here goes. Before I start, if anything here is unclear, or if you want clarification, or if there's anything that you're worried about that I don't cover, then please just ask below and I will try to answer or find the answer if I can't answer it directly. I am a nurse and I did do quite a bit of extra public health training around immunity and vaccinations, but that was a year or 2 or 15 ago. The other caveat is that this is a novel coronavirus, which doesn't mean that it's fiction. It means that it is new and it is unique. We, and by that I mean the medical and scientific community as well as the general public, are learning more about this virus every day. And it is also possible that it is changing in its behaviour as well. It's certainly changing in its presentation in some populations. But that is probably more to do with it being exposed to more people for longer. And it's normal for viruses to mutate. Okay, so the most common questions I get asked are about transmission from person to person and what the difference is between having antibodies and being immune. So let's start with transmission. COVID-19 is transmitted by droplet from the infected person to the new host. I kind of like host as a word, it makes me think of parties. But basically, droplet transmission is snot and spit and tears. Person A coughs and person B inhales, and voila, new sick person. Or not, but that's a different story. But this is why social distancing is so effective and why it's 2 meters. The average person expels air a metre when they cough. The extra metre is the safety barrier, or in case it's the Hulk that's next to you coughing. Another scenario is when person A is dog-tired after a long day at work and rubs their eyes and then grasps hold of the trolley handle, and then person B comes along and grabs the trolley and then can't remember what it was on the list and touches their mouth with their index finger in the universal sign for I can't remember. Seriously, why do we all do that? But it does happen more than you think. The average person touches their face 16 times an hour. It's almost impossible to stop. So what can we do to prevent transmission? We've already talked about social distancing, but 2 other things that I would recommend are wearing face masks and the proper use of disposable gloves. There is a lot of controversy coming from the government at the moment about whether wearing face masks and whether it's useful at all. And the truth is that is purely about the fact that they can't get hold of any. There is not enough for nurses, the other medical staff, so they don't want to put more pressure on the supply chain and have us all in a bog roll gate type of situation again. On evidence, there is absolutely no doubt that face masks will help stop the transmission of COVID-19. They aren't a panacea. A regular surgical face mask or a cloth face mask won't prevent you from being infected, but they will prevent droplets from coughs reaching another person if you personally are infectious, and they will stop some of the bug coming in. Plus, they do provide a very valuable visual and tactile cue to prevent you from touching your face and to remind those around you of the dangers. Likewise, disposable gloves are only as good as the user, kind of like how different bits work for different horses with different riders. Yeah, apologies to the non-riders here, but it's an analogy the riders will understand. Disposable gloves need to be treated like your hands. As soon as you touch an infected surface while wearing them, and then touch your mouth or your face, you are providing a transmission source. However, if you remove those gloves carefully and dispose of them after touching any surface with the virus on them, you will be breaking that chain. Just like wearing a mask, they also provide a valuable cue to remind you of the situation that you're in. Before I go on, I need to take a moment about how to wear the masks and gloves and how to take them off safely. I've got both here because, well, although this pandemic is supposedly unprecedented and no one could possibly know that it was coming, I had a unicorn appear in my dreams and magically tell me back in early February that I needed to prepare. Which I did, including buying a box of masks when there was still plenty available on Amazon. We had no idea there was going to be a shortage. And the gloves I've actually had forever. The horse people will know what I'm talking about when I say sheath cleaning. Non-horse people, don't Google it. The mask should either be shaped over the nose or have an internal metal clip like this one. That goes at the top, and you just put the elastic behind your ears. You squeeze the metal clip over your nose gently and then pull the bottom underneath your chin so it fits the surface. They need to cover both your mouth and your nose at all times, or they are useless. And then the number one rule is do not touch it. Yes, it's annoying and hot, and yes, if you wear it for a while, your ears will hurt, but honestly, here's the world's smallest violin. Harden up, princess. The gloves are easy. Just get a variety of sizes for everyone. I'm tiny in glove size, 6 or a 6.5. So I get small. 7 or 7.5 is medium, and above 8 is large. Horse people are at an advantage because you'll know your glove size. For non-horse people, just Google it to figure it out. It's an easy measurement to take. There's no left or right glove, so grab two and put them on. Remember, once they are on, don't touch your face. Consider them dirty. Taking them off, you turn them inside out and pull one over the other so that you only come into contact with the inside surface, which is the clean side. Use that inside surface to remove your mask and then bin them immediately in an outside bin. Should gloves and masks continue to not be available to the public, the only thing that we can do is to practice extremely good hygiene. You know, all that same stuff you've been told for ages. Wash your hands, wash your hands, wash your hands, and don't touch your face. There are lots of questions about whether this virus can be transmitted on clothing and other porous surfaces like packaging and paper. And while it's possible, it's very unlikely for sufficient viral load to be transmitted from one person to another in a big enough quantity for infection with normal wearing and washing and handling. However, if you've been out and you've been coughed all over or stood in close quarters environment with a lot of other people, like the tube, for example, or certainly if you've been in a place where sick people might also be, such as a hospital or a doctor's surgery, then you will need to take your clothes off as soon as you get home, put them in the wash and have a shower. Back to the viral load comment, as it's one that gets bandied about in the media with monotonous regularity and not much explanation. Viral load refers to the actual amount of virus that you come into contact with. Viral load changes both with the number of sick people you're in contact with and how unwell they are. The more unwell, the more virus is likely to be shed and the amount of infectious substance that gets into your system. If you're in a room with a bunch of people who are very sick, then you are much more likely to come into contact with a larger viral load than if you are served in a supermarket by an asymptomatic cashier. Viral load is why our healthcare workers are dying. And they don't have enough or the right sort of PPE to provide an adequate barrier between them and the virus, which is what the mask and gloves are doing. Viral load has an impact not just on whether or not you get sick, but also how bad that infection becomes. Of course, it's not the only variable that causes critical disease, but it is certainly a factor. Okay, so right, it's transmission. What about immunity? There's a bit of confusion about immunity surrounding the virus, and part of that is that we simply don't know. But part of the narrative comes from the government and the media, and the fact that it's ever changing and it's confused at best. So many in the public arena seem to believe that it's just a matter of time and we'll all be able to get an injection or survive a mild dose of the disease and be fully covered and carried on with life as usual. That ignores several important issues. First and foremost, we need to know if immunity for this virus is even possible. There have been some reports of people getting it twice, although there are a couple of alternative explanations for this. The main theory being that their level of antigen in the system may have actually fluctuated throughout their infection, resulting in what's called a false negative before retesting positive. But we simply don't know. They may have really had this disease twice. While we have been able to show a level of antibodies in the blood after an infection, no one knows how long this lasts or if it is enough for protection from infection. The second problem that is overlooked by many is that we have never managed to create a vaccine for any coronavirus before. Of course, with this disease, there is quite a bit of incentive to get one sorted, and there are another number of governments and commercial labs throwing unlimited resources at it. However, there was also a bit of international consternation with both SARS and MERS, and we never even got close to creating a vaccine for those. While on the subject of medical interventions, while not strictly related to immunity, we need to be aware that currently there are absolutely no treatments for any of these diseases. None. Zero. Zilch. Nada. Everything that the medical community is doing for us is what is known as supportive cares and symptom suppression. Basically, they make you feel better and they give the systems that are affected, like the heart and the lungs and the digestive tract and the kidneys and the blood functions, a bit of a help to do their jobs while the body heals itself. That's it. The whole BS story about ventilators being the second coming it was all a pipe dream. Yes, a lot of people with advanced respiratory disease can benefit from having ventilation. But the ventilators are not going to cure you. And in fact, if you get it that bad, the chances of you surviving are less than 50-50 across all age groups and all demographics. The stats are much worse if you're elderly or obese or have one of those underlying conditions that everyone keeps banging on about. To be fair, this is not a new narrative. I can tell you from years of working in A&E that most people believe if you get to the front door of a hospital still vaguely pink and warm, that you'll survive. Sorry, we're good, not God. But anyway, I personally believe that the likelihood of developing an effective treatment for this virus is far greater than an outright vaccine. Something along the lines of what AZT is for HIV. But whatever, both are going to take some time. The third obvious problem for me is the fact that COVID-19 seems to be mutating. It has become more infectious, and the presentations are also changing. It's not unexpected, but it does pose a problem for any vaccine that might be developed or immunity gained from previous infection. Even if we do manage to generate something effective and scalable and inexpensive, it may be like the influenza vaccine and need to be repeated to cover the current strain. And how do we vaccinate against a strain that we've never seen before? At least with influenza, it's a matter of looking at a bunch of different strains for which we already have vaccines, predicting which ones are going to be the predominant ones in any given year, and then mixing them up like a cocktail, only life-saving. The key thing with immunity is that you can't look at this disease and think it's going to be like the chicken pox when you're a kid. You get it once and you're done. Or that a scientist in a lab coat is going to swan in and save the day sometime in September. If you're unfortunate enough to get sick with it, you're possibly or probably okay for a bit at least. But don't rely on that. Not yet anyway, not until we know more. One thing that you can do that the rest of us would appreciate if you do get infected and recover is to get tested for antibodies. You might be able to donate plasma, and there's some cool shit going on with that, starting with potential treatments for the most critically ill. Okay, I've most definitely gone on for long enough now, but I hope that I've answered some of your questions and clarified some of the things that you've been hearing. Remember, if I haven't covered it or if you're still confused, I welcome comments and questions. And just one final thing about transmission and immunity. I've been reading in the last few days the suggestion that the UK is finally taking New Zealand's lead. And that we will be encouraged to develop social bubbles of people. If this does happen, choose carefully. It's no good having 9 people who are careful and including your dickhead Uncle Colin because you have to, and he buggers off round to his mates most nights to drink beer and watch old FA Cup matches with 15 of his closest friends. Your bubble is all of your bubble. Your 10 people are only allowed to associate within that group. If Margaret heads off to get her nails and her hair done because she thinks it's just one person extra, she's just increased your bubble by her nail text 10 people as well. I hope that makes sense. I hope that's clear to you. Be careful out there, folks. I know that you'll be looking forward to being able to explore a little bit further, maybe go for a lesson or climb a hill. But just remember that this is far from over, that this disease is now endemic in the community, and it will be up to you to keep yourself safe. See you soon, I hope.